Hi, Tacoma.
Hi,
Welcome
Tacoma.
back.
I'm Mrs. Oswin.
And I'm Mrs. Wally. Welcome to TV Classroom.
Mrs. Wally, where are we?
We're at Wapato Park.
Wapato Park, right here in South Tacoma.
Yes, this is right here in the middle of our city, and it's beautiful.
Yes, and we have some special guests with us today, Chris and Connor, who are educators with the Pierce Conservation District. And a duck wanted to say hello.
Right behind us.
Tell us a little bit about what you do, why we're here, and what we can expect to do today.
Yeah, well, we're environmental educators at the Pierce Conservation District. So, last time we were together, we were walking up Swan Creek Park and looking at some of the plants there and talking about that creek, because that's kind of our specialty, is talking about water quality and salmon. And in this case, today, we're going to talk a little bit about plants and trees here at Wapato Lake Park.
Nice.
Now, these trees look different than they did in the springtime. So I think we'll be able to make some fun observations.
Yeah, collect some data, and maybe we'll come back again in another season and see how things look different.
Yeah, that would
Awesome.
be great. Last time we talked, it was in the spring, so things were just starting to bud out, and there were flowers, and now it's the fall. And so the pretty colors all along the lake here, lining the lakeside, make for a really cool scene.
Yes.
We'll talk a little bit about why they're making that color change today.
Okay. I have a quick question before we get started. So you started talking about salmon. We're in a lake. How does it, are salmon in the lake, or why does this lake matter for salmon?
Yeah, there's not salmon in this lake specifically. There are fish in this lake, although Wapato Lake has had some water quality issues in the past because of pollution and runoff into the lake, making it hard for fish to survive. There used to be swimming in this lake back when it was healthier, but with a lot of the pollution problems, some of that stuff has had to be put on hold, unfortunately. So we'll talk a little bit about maybe how we can help the lake improve and how we can keep water clean for fish here and also for salmon in other places in Tacoma too.
Fantastic. Should we talk a little bit about our data sheets and where students can get those?
Yes. Yeah. So we brought data sheets today from the Budburst project. And it's a really cool project that really trains your observation skills, right? Because we notice that plants and trees are changing. And one way to track that is to record the dates of when certain things happen. So if you kind of pay attention to the life cycle of the plants, like when the leaves start to come out or the flowers start to come out, or in this case, in the fall, when all the colors appear and they start to drop, we can have a schedule of when we expect the specific plants and trees to change. And that can be important because especially as we see things changing around us, we might notice that trees bloom earlier or flower earlier, but we really need data to show that, and so this is one way that we can collect that data.
Now, this is special paper we have because we're out here in the elements and it might rain today. So tell us a little bit about this cool paper.
Yeah, so I was anticipating rain, so I printed our data sheets on Write in the Rain paper, which is really handy for scientists who come out in all weather, who don't want their paper to be ruined as they're recording important information like what plants we're seeing and what they're doing. So it's coated and it will repel the water if it does start to rain on us like I expect that it will.
Very cool. So are we going to look at all the trees and plants, or is there a specific kind or type that we're going to look at today?
So we'll look at the trees here in general and notice the differences, then we'll pick a few specific ones and maybe record just on those.
Okay.
Because it's important that we visit the same plant so that way we can be consistent with what we're tracking.
Okay.
So we'll pick some random ones as we find along the trail.
Awesome.
Okay, let's get walking.
All right.
Okay, we're here at our first stop on Wapato Lake, And Connor, you're going to tell us a little bit about why you chose this spot and what we see.
Yeah, I sure am. So as you can see behind me, there's lots of beautiful trees here, lots of gorgeous colors at this time of year. And like we said before, you might know that normally trees are green, and that's because they have this chemical in the leaves called chlorophyll that helps them photosynthesize, and that's how they make their food. But when it gets to wintertime, the trees can detect that there's changes going on, it's starting to get colder, there's less light, and so they've evolved to drop their leaves because it's easier for them to just hold on to all that food during the winter, and then when it's springtime they can grow more leaves and start making more food. And so what happens is that they stop making that chlorophyll, and that's what makes the leaves green, and so they stop making it and the rest of it starts to go away too, and that's why all these other colors come out, is because then there's other compounds that do similar things to chlorophyll, but they start to show through because the chlorophyll's gone now. So that's why the colors happen. But then you might notice that there's some evergreens back behind these yellow trees, and those, like they say, stay green all year long because they've adapted a different way in that they keep their leaves all winter long, and those leaves, which are called needles, they're a lot tougher. And so they can survive the winter and they can be doing photosynthesis all year long, and they invest their energy in those leaves instead of growing new ones in the spring.
I never knew.
So it's kind of like some trees go into hibernation, like a bear.
It is
Goes
kind
into
of like that.
hibernation.
Yeah.
They get all their food in storage and they hunker down for the winter, and then when they come back out, then they start eating again. I've never thought of it that way.
That's a really good analogy. I like that a lot.
Okay, we're a little bit farther down the trail now, and tell us about why this spot and what we're gonna do.
Yeah, so we are recording, how trees are changing through the season. So you all picked a great example right above us. It is a big leaf maple. And we picked it because it's really starting to show some color change. And we're gonna enter that on our data sheet. So the way Budburst works is you record the date that certain things happen. And after about a year, you have kind of the schedule of when it goes through its life cycle changes. And the fun part would be to revisit this same tree next year and the years following to see if it's roughly the same date that it's making these changes each time. And so we want to come back to the specific one because as we've been walking around, we noticed that even trees from the same species might be looking a little bit different. And so this one, I don't know, what did you notice about it when we came to it?
Well, it looks like the leaves, about half of them are changing color, and then there's half of them are still really green.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because it's like this part of the tree is green and this part of the tree is changing color. And as I look up under, I can see some leaves that the leaves themselves half are color and half are green.
I also noticed that it looks like more towards the bottom half, there's still quite a few leaves, but looking straight up, there's bare branches.
Yeah.
And I picked up one of the leaves from the ground, and it's got a beautiful pattern.
It really does.
So we're going to do a leaf grab after we write down our date.
So this leaf is showing us now that there's less chlorophyll in the tree and more other compounds that are changing the color.
And it looks like here, there's still some green left. I can see just as I hold it up, I can see a little bit of green right here in the veins.
Oh, very interesting.
Just a tiny bit of green left in the veins there.
Yeah, and all the leaves that we're standing on right now, like the one you picked up, they're pretty yellow and orange. There's not a lot of green leaves that have fallen, so it seems like the tree knows when to shed those leaves that are starting to lose their chlorophyll, right? So it's that time of season. And so this fits really nice into the 50% color category. Right about now is when it seems like this big leaf maple specifically is about 50% through its color change.
Okay.
So we would enter today's date into this box. We'd record the species information, that it's a big leaf maple. The scientific name or the Latin name is Acer macrophyllum, so we'd get real technical with scientists speak and enter the scientific name too. And then to help us find this tree again, we would want to record a note about which one it is, right? So we might notice that it's like halfway up the path, towards the off-leash dog park or
On
something
the
like that.
right-hand side.
On the right-hand side.
Yeah.
And then we could come find this a few weeks from now, maybe, when more of the leaves have fallen and we record that.
So we'll
date.
bring this back out when we come back out and record the next thing. Awesome. Now, you had something you said might be kind of fun to do with leaves at home. Do you want to show our friends at home what we can do?
We could find examples. So like we were talking about before, the evergreens, they still have leaves. They just look a lot different. They look more like needles or even like little scales building up on each other. So something you can do to kind of really get a good look at that is a leaf rubbing is one thing you can do. So here, let me get this set up. And all you need is a piece of paper, something like a crayon or a colored pencil, and a hard surface. You can put the leaf underneath. I've got 2 pieces of paper here. That's too much. We don't want that. And then let's get a nice, how about orange, since the
kind
leaves
of
are
orange,
orange.
brown, yellowy color.
Okay, so what you can do is that you put the leaf underneath the paper. Make sure it's nice and flat. And you take your crayon and you do it sideways. And you just press it and you rub it back and forth. And see, you can see the leaf starting to come through.
How fun. So this is something you could do as a class. This is something you could do at home. You could go to the park and do it.
Yeah.
You could come to Wapato Lake and do it. That's really neat.
And then you could even do another one up here, and then you could compare and contrast.
Exactly.
Oh,
yeah,
look
let's
at
see
that
this
one.
one. So you
Chris
can see
read
this
my
one's a
mind.
lot different.
Yeah, it's very brown.
And let's do a different color too to make it stand out. Do I have a brown? I do have a brown. Okay.
You put the bumpy side up, which helps really show the ridges. Those stand out
Okay.
a lot better.
So kind of the back of the leaf, that bumpy
Yeah,
side.
the underside.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a good one.
One thing right away I noticed is that this leaf has points on the ends of it, and this one is just rounded all along the
I
edge.
noticed that.
They both have veins.
Exactly.
I wonder about this leaf that we just did. It's as it's getting browner, it gets crunchier too. Like I can hear when I step on brown leaves. Does that also have to do with the levels of chlorophyll in the tree?
You know, that is a really good question. I think, I don't know for sure, so
Okay.
maybe this is something that can be looked up later.
Yeah.
But I think it just more has to do with the leaves are just drying out, because also what happens is that when the trees realize that they need to lose their leaves because winter's coming, they start to kind of cut off resources to that leaf. And so that way they take back everything that they can resource-wise from the leaf, and then they'll grow this layer of cells that eventually detaches the leaf from the tree. And so I think it's more that they're just dried out and don't have as many resources.
Okay.
Mr. Kevin, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just to say the tree like stops giving it food and water
Exactly.
because it knows it's going to leave it anyways.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
So I'm making a really interesting observation up here on this branch. But if you look, these leaves are really yellow, but then here, you can see this leaf, you can see it
Green.
change, like it actually changing. Like in the process of it changing color. And then there's some really brown ones up there. So I'm guessing the resources were cut off to the ones that were closer to the trunk of the tree first.
Oh.
And it hasn't reached all the way to the tip of the branch. That's my guess.
So we're about 100 feet up the path, and we have another tree that Chris and Connor wanted to point out and tell us a little bit about.
Yeah, this is a unique one. It's a Pacific Madrona tree, and it's a broadleaf tree like the big leaf maple that we just saw, right? It has leaves, not needles, but interestingly, it's an evergreen. So we call it a broadleaf evergreen tree. It's going to hold on to its leaves instead of shedding them like the big leaf maple and the Pacific cottonwood and some of the other trees that we have visited so far.
Yeah.
So it's going to keep its leaves. It's evergreen. There's also lots of evergreen shrubs like the tall and low Oregon grape or the salal. So they're broadleaves, but they are evergreen, so they're going to hold on to them.
Are there any trees that have needles that are deciduous?
Yes, good
Oh.
question. There's a tree called the larch, which is coniferous. It has needles, and that one drops its needles. So it's a deciduous conifer, I guess you could
We actually have a deciduous conifer in our yard.
Oh, interesting.
It's one of Mr. Raleigh's very favorite trees.
Has it already lost its needles?
It's on its way.
Did they change color?
They are changing right now.
Cool.
It's just a great way to show how there's so many different strategies,
Mm-hmm.
right? Plants and trees find different ways to survive and to live the longest and be as healthy as possible. So there's always unique circumstances for different plants.
Yeah.
Great.
I also see a berry,
Yeah.
which I was not aware that Madrona's fruited.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so there's different ways, right, that trees spread, right, and grow. So they all have seeds, and some are dispersed by wind, and some are dispersed by animals. So if you have tasty-looking berries as a tree, that might encourage animals to visit you, eat your berries, and then take that seed somewhere else.
Yes.
Yeah. And then it would drop it, and then a new tree would grow.
Exactly.
Very cool.
So this tree looks very different than the trees we
It
were just
does.
looking at. What do you notice, friends? I can smell it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really lovely smell.
They smell really good.
And it doesn't look, the leaves look very different than the other one. What kind of tree is this?
This is a western red cedar, and it's an evergreen.
Evergreen, forever green, but I see brown up there.
So do sometimes trees lose some of their leaves due to needing to put resources somewhere else in the tree?
Yeah, especially some of the ones that aren't getting sunlight as much, like in the tree itself. So they may not be as absorbing as much sunlight for its energy. So that might
Less
be why
food.
it's shedding
Yep.
some of them inside.
Can't create as much food if there's not as much photosynthesis.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was wondering if we could do a leaf rubbing,
Yeah.
and I thought right here would be good
Yeah.
because then we don't have to take it off the tree.
Yeah, I think that sounds great.
Okay.
Now there is a little bit of rain, and I don't have Right in the Rain paper, so this might not work quite as well. But let's give it a shot.
Do you want me to hold this for you?
Yes, thank you. That is perfect. So it's a little bit harder because the needles are a lot thicker.
Oh yeah.
And then you don't let it work quite the same, but you still get a little bit. Okay, let's look at that.
Oh yeah, you can see it. Mr. Kevin, if you come right here, you can see all the little veins right there. That's the little leaves. They're so tiny.
Yeah.
The tiniest little leaves I've ever seen.
Oh, I know.
That's really interesting. Very different than the other ones that we
Yeah,
did.
a lot different. And that's what lets it stay evergreen
Oh.
all year long.
Is it because it doesn't need to have as much food to like send out to the big huge leaf? Is that part of it?
It can be part of it. I think also you can tell that these leaves they feel a lot different. Like they
Yeah,
feel
they're really-
thicker, they're kind of shinier,
Hardy.
a lot hardier. So it's that makes them a lot tougher, and they can withstand, the cold and the snow and all that kind of stuff. And that way they can survive through the winter.
Okay, so
Very cool.
awesome. Great. Well, we'll come back and check out this tree too in the winter. And thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for
It's
having
raining,
us.
Yeah,
so I
thank
think
Yeah.
we should.
It's a sign.
This is it.
Yeah, this is it. All right, friends. We hope you enjoyed looking at the trees, and we'll be back with these friends in December to come look at the trees again. See you next time. Bye.